My parents called me in anger, yelling, "You have no right to that money." After finding out my late grandmother left me her entire estate, she meant to give it to us. My dad insisted, but when I showed them her last letter, their faces turned pale. I was at work when my phone rang. The kind of ring that sends a shiver up your spine before you even glance at the screen. "Dad." I stared at it. Let it ring once, twice, a third time. Then Mom's name popped up right underneath. Both of them. That was never good. I exhaled sharply and answered, "How dare you?" Dad's voice exploded through the speaker, raw with fury. "You have no right to that money." I blinked. "What?" "Don't play dumb." Mom spat. "We just got a call from the lawyer. Your grandmother's estate, everything. She left it all to you." Oh, my stomach twisted. I had known this moment was coming ever since I walked out of the lawyer's office. The weight of that will in my hands felt heavier than gold. I'd been bracing for the storm, but even then, I wasn't prepared for the sheer rage crackling through the phone. "It was her choice," I said carefully. She was old," Dad interrupted. Confused. "She must have made a mistake." Mom jumped in. "She meant to give it to us. We were her children. We took care of her. You put her in a home," I shot back before I could stop myself, "and never visited." Silence. A dangerous, pulsing silence. Then, low and sharp, my father's voice. "You think you deserve that money more than we do?" Deserve? Did I deserve it? Maybe not. But I knew one thing. Grandma had wanted me to have it. That had to mean something. "She made the decision herself," I said. "There's nothing I can do." "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then prove it," Dad sneered. "Prove she wanted this. Otherwise, we're contesting the will." I clenched my jaw. I'd expected them to be angry, maybe even to try and guilt me. But this was war. My fingers curled around my bag strap as I spoke. "Fine. You want proof? Meet me at my apartment tonight." I hung up before they could answer. My hands were shaking. I reached into my drawer and pulled out the last letter Grandma had ever written me. Her shaky but deliberate handwriting. The ink slightly smudged, as if her hands had trembled while writing it. I read the first line again. "My dear, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if they're angry, know that I had my reasons." I swallowed hard. Tonight was going to be HLL. The letter felt heavier than paper in my hands. I read it again, slowly this time. "My dear, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if they're angry, know that I had my reasons." I swallowed hard. The words felt like a shield, but I wasn't sure it would be strong enough to withstand the storm that was coming. By the time my parents arrived, the sky outside had darkened, a fitting backdrop for the mood they brought with them. Dad barely waited for the door to close before starting in. "You'd better have a damn good reason for this, because I swear to God." "Sit down." My voice was steel, not a request, not a plea, a command. They hesitated, just for a second. Then Mom scoffed and took a seat, arms crossed tight. Dad remained standing, looming like a shadow. I reached for the letter, sliding it across the table. "Read it." Mom snatched it up first. Her eyes darted across the page, her expression shifting from anger to something else. Something flickering uncertainty? No, guilt. Dad leaned over her shoulder. His scowl deepened with each passing second. This is nothing. Just her rambling." "Keep reading," I said. Mom did. Her lips parted slightly as she reached the middle. Then her hands started to tremble. She set the letter down like it had burned her. Dad yanked it up next, muttering under his breath. But the more he read, the quieter he got. When he finally reached the last line, he looked at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw something other than anger in his eyes. Fear. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because the truth was there, in ink and paper, in my grandmother's own words. And it destroyed them. Mom inhaled sharply. She was confused. No, my voice was calm. She wasn't. Dad clenched his jaw. "You think this letter changes anything?" He slammed it down on the table. She was old. Weak. Who knows what kind of nonsense she believed near the end. I felt my nails dig into my palms. "You're still going to fight this?" "Of course we are." Mom snapped, voice shrill. "This is our money." She couldn't, but her voice wavered. Because deep down, she knew. Dad turned his glare on me. "If you don't give us our fair share, we'll take this to court. We'll drag this out for years." I let out a slow breath. "You sure you want to do that?" His eyes narrowed. "What the HLL does that mean?" I leaned back, calm despite the fire in my chest. "Because if we go to court, everything comes out." I tapped the letter. Every single thing she wrote. They both froze. I let the silence stretch. Let them feel it. Then, quietly, I said, "So tell me, do you really want to do that?" For the first time since this started, they looked uncertain. And I knew I'd just shifted the balance. Dad's nostrils flared. His fingers curled into fists, knuckles white against his skin. "What the HLL does that mean?" he repeated, voice low and dangerous. Mom's gaze darted between me and the letter, her mind racing. She was calculating, weighing her next move. But I had already thrown them off balance. They knew it. I tapped the letter again. Slowly, deliberately. "It means if we go to court," I said, keeping my voice even. Then every single thing Grandma wrote comes out. Every ugly little truth she left behind. Silence. Mom shifted in her seat. You're bluffing. Am I? Dad snatched the letter back up, eyes skimming it over like he had missed something the first time. I saw the exact moment his jaw tightened, his pulse hammering in his neck. I already knew what part he was stuck on. I never forgot what you did, and I never forgave you for it. It was the one sentence they hadn't acknowledged. The one line that had made their faces pale. What is this supposed to mean? Mom hissed. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Dad slammed a fist against the table. Enough with the games. But it wasn't a game. Not anymore. Mom was the first to break. She shot up from her seat, pacing, rubbing her temples like the pressure in her skull was unbearable. She was senile, she muttered, half to herself. She was always saying things that didn't make sense at the end. Except she wasn't. Grandma had been sharp until the last moment, and she had known exactly what she was saying. She forgave a lot of things in her life, I said, studying them both. But not that. Whatever that was. Neither of them spoke. Their silence was its own kind of confession. I let out a slow breath and leaned forward. You knew? I said, quieter now. You knew she'd never leave you a cent. That's why you never checked on her. Why you never cared. Mom flinched like I had struck her. Dad recovered first. His voice was sharp, slicing through the air like a blade. None of this matters. If we contest the will, a judge will decide. I smiled. Yeah, and you'd have to answer some very uncomfortable questions in court. Under oath. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Mom's pacing stopped. She was breathing too fast, panic creeping in around the edges. I tapped the letter once more. Your move, I said. The room was suffocating in its silence. Then, Dad exhaled sharply through his nose. This isn't over. He turned on his heel and strode toward the door. Mom lingered for half a second, like she wanted to say something. Maybe beg, maybe scream, but she didn't. Instead, she followed him out. The door slammed shut behind them, and I, finally, let myself breathe. The silence they left behind felt heavier than the confrontation itself. I stood there, staring at the closed door, my heartbeat still hammering in my ears. This wasn't over. Dad had made that clear, but they had left. And that alone told me one thing. They were shaken. Good. I exhaled slowly and sat back down, reaching for the letter again. My fingers traced over Grandma's words, the ink slightly smudged from where my grip had tightened earlier. I never forgot what you did, and I never forgave you for it. What had they done? I had my suspicions, but nothing solid. Just the unease I'd felt my entire life whenever Grandma mentioned them in passing. Always careful, always distant. She had loved them once, I knew that. But something had broken that love beyond repair. And whatever it was, it had been bad enough for her to cut them out of her final wishes entirely. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start. The next morning, I drove to the law office handling Grandma's estate. The place smelled like old books and coffee, the kind of scent that clung to important conversations. Mr. Reynolds, her lawyer, looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable. I take it your parents weren't thrilled, he said dryly. I huffed a humorless laugh. Understatement. He gestured for me to sit. I had a feeling they might contest it. Have they made any legal moves yet? Not yet. I hesitated, but I think they will. He sighed, rubbing his temples. If they do, we have more than enough to hold up the will in court. Your grandmother was of sound mind when she made her decision. Their chances are slim. That's not what I'm worried about, I admitted. His brow furrowed. Then what are you worried about? I pulled the letter from my bag, unfolding it carefully. This line right here. I pointed to the words that haunted me. I never forgot what you did, and I never forgave you for it. Mr. Reynolds stared at it. Then, slowly, he sat back in his chair, expression shifting into something unreadable. I studied him carefully. You know what she meant, don't you? He hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. My stomach twisted. Tell me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Reynolds exhaled, then folded his hands on the desk. Your grandmother. She had a reason for everything she did. I stayed silent, waiting. Finally, he spoke. Years ago, before you were born, your grandmother loaned your parents a large sum of money. Enough to buy a house, start their business. Everything they built was because of her. I frowned. I didn't know that. Most people didn't, he admitted. She didn't like to talk about it. But it wasn't the loan that broke her trust. A chill ran down my spine. Then what was it? He met my eyes, voice grim. They never paid her back. And when she asked for it, they abandoned her. I froze. No, I had always known my parents weren't good people. But this? This was cruelty at a level I hadn't even imagined. She gave them everything. He continued, shaking his head. And when she needed help, they turned their backs on her. Cut her off. Left her struggling while they thrived. A lump formed in my throat. And that's why she left them nothing. Mr. Reynolds nodded. She never forgave them. She didn't want them to benefit from her kindness again. I gripped the edges of the letter, my knuckles white. Greedy. Selfish. Cold. I had always felt these things about my parents. But now? Now I had proof. And if they took this to court, the whole world would know it too. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Thank you," I said, my voice firm, "for telling me." He nodded solemnly. "Be careful. They're desperate. And desperate people make dangerous choices." I swallowed hard. I knew that. And I had a sinking feeling that things were about to get worse. Mr. Reynolds' warning clung to me the whole drive home. Desperate people make dangerous choices. I had no doubt my parents were desperate. I had backed them into a corner, and people like them didn't handle losing well. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. They had built their whole lives on money that wasn't theirs. And when the person who made it all possible had needed help, just a little help, they had left her to rot. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Grandma had never said a word to me about any of it. Never let it taint the way she treated me. I was the one person she had chosen to trust in the end, and I would not let her down. As I pulled into my apartment's parking lot, my phone buzzed. A text. "Dad, we need to talk. Now." I exhaled sharply. Of course. A second text followed. "Dad, we're outside." My heart stuttered. I turned slowly, eyes scanning the lot. Then I saw them, parked across from me, sitting in their car, watching. I felt my pulse spike. They had been waiting for me. I forced a deep breath, schooling my expression before stepping out. The moment I did, their car door slammed open. Dad was out first, his posture stiff, movement sharp. Mom followed, a little slower, eyes flickering with something between determination and pleading. "That was fast," I said, forcing lightness into my tone. "Desperate." Dad's jaw flexed. "Get in the car." I scoffed. "Not a chance." "We just want to talk," Mom said, voice smoother, softer. Manipulative. "No fighting. No lawyers. Just a conversation." "Funny," I said, "because last time we just talked, you threatened to drag me to court." Dad took a step closer. Too close. "That was before." "Before what?" He hesitated. Then, voice tight, he said, "Before we realized what's really at stake." A chill skittered down my spine. They knew. They knew that if they pushed this, the truth would come out. And they were terrified. I folded my arms. "Let me guess. You want to make a deal." Mom's lips pressed together. Dad exhaled sharply through his nose. "We'll settle this," he said, privately. "And what exactly does that mean?" He hesitated again, then finally ground out. "We won't contest the will if you give us a cut." A humorless laugh escaped me. There it was. The last, pathetic attempt to grab what they could. "How generous of you," I said dryly. "Don't be stupid," Dad snapped. "Take the deal. Otherwise, this gets ugly." I tilted my head, feigning thoughtfulness. "See, I think it's already ugly. Because now, I know exactly what you did to Grandma." Mom flinched. Dad's face twisted. "That's not. You left her." I cut in, voice sharp. "Used her money, then abandoned her when she needed you." Mom's lips parted, but no words came. Dad took another step forward. "You don't understand." "No," I snapped. "You don't understand. You lost. You don't get to rewrite the story just because you don't like how it ends." His eyes darkened. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. But then Mom grabbed his arm. Her nails dug in. "Let's go," she whispered. He didn't move at first. His fists clenched. His breath came out hard and fast. Then, finally, he exhaled sharply and wrenched his arm free. "You'll regret this," he muttered. I smiled, sharp and knowing. "No, you will." His glare burned into me for a moment longer. Then, without another word, he turned. Mom followed, her expression tight, unreadable. I watched them climb back into their car, watched them drive away. And just like that, it was over. The house felt different when I stepped inside. Lighter, quieter. For the first time since Grandma's passing, I felt like I could breathe. I walked to the kitchen, pulling out her letter one last time. My fingers brushed the paper, reading those words again. "I never forgot what you did, and I never forgave you for it." She had carried that pain for years, but she had also made sure it ended with her. She had protected me, given me a chance to build something better, free from the greed and selfishness that had poisoned my parents. And I would honor that. I folded the letter carefully, placing it back in its envelope. Then, with a deep breath, I stepped forward, toward a future that, for the first time, was truly mine.